If you play chess, there is a 0% chance that you haven't been advertised a chess smartboard in the last 6 months. Chess.com constantly promote their chess upboards, and even Hikaru Nakamura is a brand ambassador for one of the leading companies in the space, Chestnut. But the question is, are they actually useful? And better yet, are they worth the price? Well, in today's video, Chestnut have kindly sent out one of their top-of-the-range Chestnut Evos so I can give you guys my brutally honest review. If you guys haven't been keeping up with this series, I absolutely do not hold back in my reviews, and I tell them exactly how they are. I should also note that Chestnut have not paid me for this video. However, if you do end up liking the product in this video, Chestnut have kindly given me a 30% discount code JackSarkElo, which you can use at checkout. I don't know why they gave it to me specifically, but that is the biggest discount that they have given on their entire website. To properly showcase everything the Chestnut Evo has to offer, we're gonna structure this video into 3 segments. At the end of each segment, we'll rate the Chestnut Evo based on the segment's theme. First, we'll show off the aesthetics of the board, looking into the board's design, material, and build quality. Then we'll dive into its functionality. In this section, we'll mainly look into how you can actually use the board to play games, whether that be against an engine or against real players online. And finally, we'll look into all the possible integrations and what the Chestnut Evo is compatible with, which is of massive importance if we want to call any digital board a smart board. With all this being said, let me show you exactly what the Chestnut Evo looks like. Before we even look at the actual board, I wanted to take a moment to appreciate the packaging for the Chestnut Evo. Obviously, this doesn't change anything about the actual board, but it was a little bit too beautiful to not show in this video. The Chestnut Evo board is around 34 by 34 centimeters in size, with an 18 by 34 centimeter touchscreen panel attached. The board itself has a wooden frame with a metallic spray paint finish. You won't see them in action just yet, but there are also 64 programmable colored LED lights on the board that will indicate things like game results or opponent piece movement. What is much more interesting to me though is the touchscreen panel mounted to the side of the board, which can act as a completely independent host for the Chestnut Evo. The panel runs off a dedicated operating system designed by Chestnut, which is based on Android 11 and runs off an Octa 2 GHz 64-bit processor. In saying this, the interface of the Chestnut Evo touchscreen panel is super clean and is very reminiscent of the interface on a regular Android device. The Chestnut Evo has 4 GB of RAM and 64 GB of storage, essentially meaning you can play all the chess your heart desires. It's also completely wireless, so apart from charging the actual board, you can take it wherever you go. If you don't have access to the internet, you can play independently against the engine, which we'll showcase later in the video. Maybe most incredibly, the Chestnut Evo has a total of 10 hours of battery life when fully charged. This means that even the longest World Championship game played in history, which was Magnus Carlsen versus Jan Nepomniachtchi in 2022, which lasted 7 hours and 47 minutes, could have all been played on the Chestnut Evo. The pieces, on the other hand, are quite slick. However, the only flaw in the aesthetics of the board is that the pieces are plastic with a piano paint finish. I say flaw because most chess players associate quality in chess pieces with wood, which I understand is completely subjective, so I won't let it cloud my judgment too much. If you really want wooden chess pieces though, the Chestnut Air pieces can be bought separately, which are compatible with the Chestnut Evo and are made of wood. Otherwise, the pieces are lightweight, they seem relatively scratch resistant, and overall they look quite nice. Small velvet pouches are also included in the Chestnut Evo to store the pieces. It should also be mentioned that the technology also does 100% work as advertised, which we'll go on to showcase later. Overall, I really have nothing bad to say about the overall look and quality of the board. Of course, it should be noted that looks are not everything. The overall functionality and compatibility of the board is what's going to be the most important talking points in this video. However, I can't really fault this chess set when it comes to aesthetics. Obviously, this kind of thing is subjective. If you don't like the way that this board looks, you'd be completely correct as well. But in my eyes, and everyone that I've sent photos to of this board to make them jealous that I have it and they don't, this board is absolutely stunning. I feel there is room for improvement, but I'm not 100% sure where that improvement should come from. When it comes to aesthetics and material quality of the Chestnut Evo, I feel that giving them a 9 out of 10 is completely fair. But now we need to look at the functionality. I should note that the Chestnut Evo panel is very, very similar to that of an Android device. If you want to, you can buy the board and just watch Jack Sark YouTube videos on the Chestnut Evo. That's not a joke, you can actually do that. For the purposes of today's video though, we won't look at any applications that aren't directly related to chess. I should also note that any unaffiliated third-party app may not work on the Chestnut Evo as intended. But if you're upset that the Chestnut Evo closed your Grow a Garden session halfway through, I'm not really sure if that's a valid criticism. Moving on though, I think the best way to show the functionality of the board is by jumping into a live demo. So to show the functionality of the Chestnut Evo, we need to hop into a game against the engine and against a real player. To play a game versus the engine, all you need to do is click bot match on the touchscreen. There's a lot of customization options, so we'll choose to play with the black pieces since it's the way that we're facing, and you can pick a whole bunch of other things as well. Then when you're ready to play, all you have to do is click start. For the Chestnut Evo, the pieces do not move by themselves, but they will light up the squares to where the piece wants to go. All you have to do is pick up the piece and move it for the engine. Then when you want to play your move, you can pick up your piece, put it on the desired square, and the chestnut will detect what move you play. Again, as you can see, the knight wants to go to f3, so we pick up the knight, put it on the f3 square, and the move is complete. We'll quickly skip through the rest of the game because this concept is pretty simple, and we'll come back if anything important pops up. On the fourth move of this game, we have a piece capture. You can capture the pieces in any way that you want. You don't have to pick up a specific piece first, so if we pick up the pawn we want to capture, and then pick up our pawn and capture, it registers as a move. Again, we could do it in the reversed way. If we pick up the piece that is capturing and then pick up the piece that is going to be captured, this also works and is a legal move. Now we've got to castling, and it's very important to note that you must castle legally. You cannot pick up the rook first and then put it on the square and then the king. It has to be the king first. For example, if I picked up the rook and placed it here, it would just play that as a rook move. What you have to do is pick up the king, put it to the desired square, and then move the rook. Another cool feature of the Chestnut Evo is that when your king is in check, the square around it will light up red. You can customize this in the board settings as well. You could make it blue or any other color, and you can also do it for other pieces as well. But for now, let's get our king out of check. And just on the 25th move, my opponent has blundered checkmate in one, so they take this pawn, not realizing that their king is in danger, and we can slide in with the queen and deliver checkmate to end the game. Now it's all well and good playing against an offline bot, but how do we play against real players online? Well, all we have to do is go back to the home screen, click online match, link your chess.com or Lichess account, and then click Lichess. From here, we click the time control that we want to play. For instance, let's play 10+0 rapid, and now we wait for a game. We are playing with the white pieces in this game, so if we play any kind of move, let's say d4, it'll appear on the board in Lichess. Now, because we've gone through all of this functionality against the bot, we'll quickly skip through this game. So we ended up losing on time, but that was a really nice game, and I think we got a good feel of how the Chestnut Evo works when you play an online game. As far as functionality goes, everything worked exactly as intended. There was one slight problem with pieces being classified as moved a little bit earlier than I expected, but apart from that, everything worked fine. It is very important that you read the instruction manual when setting up the Chestnut Evo, otherwise it won't work as described, but I really can't fault any of the functionality on the board itself. One big problem that I did have with the board is that the touchscreen panel is quite distracting. There doesn't seem to be a way to turn off just the display of the Chestnut Evo when you're playing games, so you will always be able to see the bird's eye view of the board. I also don't love the audio that the Chestnut Evo gives on moves. Instead of saying queen d4, it'll just say d1, d4. This isn't really the correct terminology, especially if we're training for over the board vision. Luckily though, this is a software thing, and if they wanted to, they could just update the software and it would be changed for everyone that has already bought a Chestnut Evo. All in all though, there's really nothing to criticize. The board has a lot more features with the LED lights and even has a cool engine feature that I didn't show in this video, but even without all of those extras, I feel that the board deserves a 9 out of 10 on functionality. But now we need to get to the section that the Chestnut Evo is let down in: the integrations and compatibility. The available integrations and overall compatibility is what I think is the most important part of a chess smartboard. I know it sounds a little bit funny to say, but there's nothing smart about a chessboard that can only play chess games. The Chestnut Evo comes in at just under 500 USD, so it needs to be compatible with at least puzzles and courses. I'm going to be very critical in this segment. If there are any features that I feel are not properly incorporated into the smartboard, I'm going to be taking points off. So let's go go through all of the potential tools that you might want to connect to your Chestnut Evo and see if they work. The Chestnut Evo is compatible with virtually any chess learning platform you could think of. The way the Chestnut Evo works is through the Vision extension on the Android device. It'll look on the tablet and scan for a chess position and any characteristics of it, such as the pieces or legality. It'll then figure out whose turn it is to move, and then the actual board will almost act as a mouse, where if you pick up a piece, you're clicking it with a mouse, and when you drop the piece on a certain square, it lets go. In a lot of ways, the chessboard is actually one big touchscreen board, with the tablet just being a way of navigating through your favorite chess websites. This means virtually any website or app is compatible with the Chestnut Evo. However, that is not synonymous with the Chestnut Evo being designed to use these websites. For example, the Chestnut Evo is a pretty terrible way of playing puzzles. Here's some footage of the Chestnut Evo being compatible with chessmind.ai, which has some free puzzles you can play on their website. If you want to actually solve the puzzle, you need to set up the entire position yourself, which takes around 1 to 2 minutes to do if you're being quick, but it's super inconvenient nonetheless. Things like courses also fall into this category of, whilst they are technically compatible, I definitely wouldn't recommend using them. This is funny though, because Chestnut has a board where the pieces literally move on their own. So if you wanted to play some puzzles, the magnets in the board would drag the pieces to the correct squares in under 10 seconds. Because the Chestnut Evo doesn't have this feature though, whilst it is compatible and technically functional with puzzles and courses, it's really only designed for gameplay. I feel it's unnecessary to show footage of the Chestnut Evo working with every single website, so we'll just leave it there. Whilst the compatibility side of things is great on the Chestnut Evo, the fact that custom positions aren't really something the board is designed for doesn't really make it an all-in-one option. The annoying thing is though, Chestnut has this technology in the Chestnut Move where the pieces move on their own. However, on the Chestnut Move, it doesn't have a touchscreen panel on the side, so it can't be used independently and you need to connect your phone. So as things stand with Chestnut, you simply won't get the best of both worlds. It must be said though, if you do have the patience to set up the custom position by yourself, puzzles and courses are completely compatible. And I do feel like criticizing Chestnut for not giving us Harry Potter pieces where they just move by themselves is Chestnut suffering from their own success, as they're really the only board to give us self-moving pieces. Just a few years ago, self-moving boards were laughed out of the industry after a failed Kickstarter campaign, but now Chestnut has made that a reality. So can I fault the Chestnut Evo for not having the technology that Chestnut is the literal frontrunner and pioneer of? No. But it is going to weigh into their score. I think overall, the Chestnut Evo gets a 7 out of 10 when it comes to integrations and compatibility. When they give me my Harry Potter pieces, it'll be a 10 out of 10, but until then, I think a 7 out of 10 fits fine. Now that we've explored everything there is to know about the Chestnut Evo, let's remind ourselves of what we thought in each section. We rated the aesthetics of the board a solid 9 out of 10. The board is beautiful, the material quality is great, and the only real flaw we could find was the pieces being made of plastic. I think it would be harsh to try and take points off the Chestnut Evo any more than we already did, so a 9 out of 10 makes a lot of sense. The functionality of the board is nearly perfect. There are no major flaws and everything works as intended. I actually made a video on the Chestnut Air around a year ago, and I found back then there were a few minor issues with piece movement and the overall technology, and it's really cool to see that in a year of development, those issues are basically non-existent. So with that being said, I feel the 9 out of 10 rating we gave them feels very justified. The Evo is let down when it comes to compatibility. Whilst it is technically compatible with any website that has a visible chessboard, it's not something I would recommend you use it for. This is a big shame, because there is so much value in doing puzzles on a real board, let alone practicing your literal opening repertoire in courses too. However, as it stands, doing those things on the Evo just isn't very convenient. However, considering that with the technology the Evo has, it is technically compatible with all websites, the 7 out of 10 rating feels fine. All in all, once we've taken everything into account, including the 441 USD price tag, I feel that giving the Chestnut an 8 out of 10 is a very fair rating. I think the main thing that might differentiate whether you think this board is good or not just depends on if you can justify the price tag. Is it absolutely necessary to your chess development? Of course not. But I really can see the Chestnut Evo being a very good tool to convert your online chess skills to over the board at a much faster rate than all of your peers. If nothing else, it's just a cool thing to have. I think the best way to describe the Chestnut Evo is like having a quad bike but for chess. Do you need a quad bike? Of course not. but do you want a quad bike? Yeah. So whilst the Chestnut Evo is naturally a luxury item, I feel it has some genuinely useful features that can't be replicated without the board. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and another thank you to Chestnut for sending out this board so we can continue this series. Let me know in the comments what you guys would like me to review next. Whatever the top comment is, I'll reach out to the company and see if they'd like their product tested on the channel. If you are interested, all links to Chestnut is in the description below, but apart from that, I hope you all enjoyed today's video, and I'll see you all in the next one.